But before we start the discussion, we also have a video recording of a person who participates in our discussion, but not in person. This is the representative of the United States State Department, and Mr. Philip Reeker, Assistant Secretary of State in the Bureau of European Eurasian Affairs. So I would ask please to put his video.
Thank you, Mr. Znatkevich, for inviting me to speak with all of you today. It is my honor to join you in recognizing the Day of Solidarity with the people of Belarus. On Tuesday, Belarusians will mark 6 months of peaceful protests following the fraudulent August presidential elections. We recognize the amazing strength and resilience of the Belarusian people, demanding their voices be heard. Belarusians of differing backgrounds and ages who courageously carry the banner of this movement both at home and abroad, despite violent pushback from the entrenched regime. The justified desire of the Belarusian people for a truly democratic government that will respect universal human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law was clearly evident to me during my own visit to Minsk in 2019. I remain in awe of your commitment and courage. I have great admiration for all those who continue this fight in the face of increasingly brutal repression from the state security services and biased courts. The desire to determine one's own future and freely choose one's own leaders is something the American people intrinsically understand, value, and support. President Biden acknowledged the brave citizens, journalists, activists, and ordinary people documenting these extraordinary events as fundamental to any democracy. Through the efforts of such people, we know the full truth about the assaults on democracy being committed by the Belarusian authorities over the past 6 months. Alexander Lukashenko has announced he will hold an all-Belarusian People's Assembly on February 11th. This conference can claim no legitimacy as a forum for national dialogue when it excludes the views of the majority of the people, including those represented by the protest movement. The United States has and will continue to call upon Lukashenko and his regime to engage in open dialogue with Ms. Tikhanovskaya and other members of Belarus's growing civil society and opposition movements. I know our ambassador-designate to Belarus, Julie Fisher, who met with Ms. Tikhanovskaya this week in Vilnius, will continue to grow our partnership with the Coordination Council and others seeking a brighter future for Belarus. We urge Lukashenko's regime to take real steps to end the crisis its election fraud and ongoing crackdown have unleashed. We also call for the immediate release of all political prisoners and an end to the unconscionable violence being committed by security services against citizens peacefully seeking a better, more democratic future. We are deeply concerned about the human rights situation in Belarus, which continues to deteriorate. More than 200 political prisoners, thousands of arbitrary arrests and detentions, a targeted campaign of repression against opposition figures, civil society, and independent media. Law enforcement has perpetrated too many extreme, needless, and senseless acts of violence carried out by the very people who are charged with protecting the citizens of Belarus. I must also mention your colleague, the blogger and activist Ihar Losik. As you know, he recently concluded a 6-week hunger strike to draw attention to the plight of the opposition in Belarus, and has been jailed for almost 7 months on charges of organizing demonstrations prior to the election. I applaud Mr. Losik for his courage and dedication, not only to his fellow citizens, but also to the principles of a free press and accountability for all. Tactics like those used against Mr. Losik hurt Belarusian citizens most of all by depriving them of factual information and seeking to suppress their right to freedom of expression. On the occasion of the International Day of Solidarity with Belarus, the United States recommits to long-term support for and partnership with the Belarusian people and their desire to live in a truly representative and democratic society. Long live Belarus! Živje Belarus!